All right, everybody. Hello, how's it going? Welcome back. I'm here. This is my wife. She doesn't like the camera. She's kind of awkward and camera shy in front of this thing, but we're going to break her of that. So today, well, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe if you like this video. If you don't like it, send it to somebody that you really don't like because they might think it's annoying too. So this is a LS Swap 350Z. We have a 5.3 in this one. Pretty much bone stock right now, but we got some goodies coming for it. And then this is a 98 Ford Ranger. This has a 6 liter with cam and springs and turbo and some stuff on it. So what we want to do today is talk about tuning acronyms. Acronyms that you would come across while you're learning tuning, or that you would see in the software, or that you would see while you're reading through a forum that you may be confused about and have to do more research. So kind of want to do like a one-stop shop. I'm going to put a link in the description to an HP Tuners page that has a whole bunch of acronyms and descriptions in it. What we want to do is just go through kind of a list of them, the more common and popular ones, and maybe clarify some things. This is a very easy topic to kind of go down a rabbit hole on, so we're going to try not to go down the rabbit hole and over-explaining everything and making it more complicated. So let's stop explaining everything and making it more complicated.
Ready?
I think I'm ready. So she's going to go through the list. I gave her the list, and this is kind of a good quiz for me, so we'll see.
AFR.
AFR, air fuel ratio. So it can also be listed as A/F. And that's basically your ratio to air to fuel.
B1S1.
B1S1. So you'll see a few different things. You'll see B1S1, B1S2, B2S1, and B2S2. So that's in relation to your oxygen sensors or your O2 sensors. So B1 is bank 1, and that's the driver's side bank of the engine. And B2 is the passenger side bank of the engine. And your S1 and S2 is your front and rear O2 sensors. So you have an oxygen sensor before the catalytic converter, and you have one after the catalytic converter. So that's what those mean.
BCM.
BCM is your body control module. So your PCM, that's another one on there, your powertrain control module is going to talk to your BCM, and your body control module controls a bunch of stuff like your door switches and windows and all that junk.
BE.
BE is boost enrichment, and you can tell we're kind of going in alphabetical order here. BE is your boost enrichment, so it's just an enrichment table that you would see while you're in boost, so not in manifold vacuum, you're actually in boost, creating boost, and it's just a table that you can manipulate to change your fueling when you're in boost.
COT.
COT, your cat over temp protection.
CR.
Compression ratio.
DTC.
Diagnostic trouble codes.
DFCO.
DFCO is deceleration fuel cutoff. So it's basically just cutting fuel when you're decelerating. It helps with emissions and fuel economy.
ECT.
ECT is electronic. No, I had them mixed up.
Etc.
Etc. ECT is your engine coolant temp. I almost had it mixed up with electronic throttle control, which is ETC. So ECT and ETC, one is electronic throttle control and one is engine coolant temp.
I got it wrong. EGR.
Exhaust gas recirculation.
EGT.
Exhaust gas temperature.
ETC.
Electronic throttle control.
EQ.
EQ is equivalence ratio. So your equivalence ratio is used as a multiplier to your stoichiometric value that you have in your tune. So anytime you would see anything that's EQ, it's EQ ratio, and it is a multiplier.
FI.
FI. So there's two different FIs. There's fuel injection and there's forced induction. So that one I see a lot, like if you're reading through a forum, somebody might reference or say something like, oh, I'm going to switch over to FI. So they may be meaning that they're switching from a carburetor to fuel injection, or NA to forced induction. NA is another one. Wait till later.
FSO.
FSO, fuel shutoff.
IAT.
IAT, intake air temperature.
IDC.
IDC is injector duty cycle. So injector duty cycle is something that is measured. It is a relationship between your injector pulse width and your engine RPM, and it calculates it in a percentage, which gives you your duty cycle.
IFR.
IFR is injector flow rate. So that is what you would enter into the tune for how much your injectors are rated to flow at a certain pressure.
IAC.
IAC is your idle air control, or it could also be IACV, idle air control valve.
IPW.
IPW is injector pulse width. So injector pulse width is how long your injectors are open or on, and it's rated in milliseconds. So you would have like 10 millisecond pulse width.
KR.
KR is knock retard. So knock retard is it is a correction that is made when the knock sensors are picking up a reading from the engine knocking, and it's pulling timing.
LTFT.
Long-term fuel trim. So long-term fuel trim there's short-term fuel trims and long-term fuel trims. So your short-term fuel trims are adjustments that are made using the narrowband O2 sensors, and those are not saved in the RAM. The difference between the short-term and long-term is the long-term is actually saved in the RAM in the tune, and it's like basically gonna be always having that correction in there. So that's something to keep in mind when you're tuning. If you would be if you have your long-term fuel trims on while you're tuning, it's kind of going to mess everything up. So you'd want to make sure that those are cleared and reset, and you have your long-term fuel trims turned off when you're making any changes.
STFT.
Short-term fuel trim.
MAF.
MAF is your mass airflow sensor.
MAP.
MAP is your manifold absolute pressure. So you have a manifold absolute pressure sensor, and you have your MAF, which is your mass airflow sensor. So your MAP sensor is going to be reading manifold pressure, and your MAF sensor is going to be reading the volume of air coming through the throttle body into the intake.
KPA.
KPA is kilopascals. It is a measurement of pressure, and that's what your MAP sensor is going to read in. So your MAP sensor is going to read in KPA, and your MAF sensor, your MAF sensor would read in hertz. So it'd be like pounds per hour, or hertz, or frequency basically.
MS.
MS is milliseconds. So there's your injector pulse width would read in milliseconds.
MV.
MV would be millivolts, so you would see that on your scanner. Like a lot of times you would see your O2 sensor banks, so they're going to read in millivolts, so you could read them in percentage or in millivolts.
MIL.
So a little bit more about before we move on to that one. In millivolts, I think I showed it in another video, there's a crossover point for your narrowband O2 sensors where you can actually change the rich lean, where your wideband sensor is going to be reading your air-fuel ratio from like a 10 to an 18. Your narrowbands are basically just reading rich or lean. So you can put a set point in there for millivolts at what the switchover point is between rich and lean.
MIL.
MIL is your malfunction indicator lamp, your check engine light.
NA.
Naturally aspirated. So no turbo, no blower, no forced induction, just naturally aspirating itself.
OLFA.
Open loop fuel adder.
PE.
PE is power enrichment. So similar to boost enrichment, but this is an enrichment table that's going to be adding fuel at a certain throttle position, manifold pressure, and yeah,
PCM.
PCM, powertrain control module.
PID.
PID or PID or PIDs are parameter IDs. So the parameter IDs are things that you would select to add to your scanner. So like engine RPM, there is a parameter ID for engine RPM, and you would enter that PID into your channels list, and that's what would you would have to add to put it on your scanner.
RAF.
RAF is your running airflow, or BRAF, base running idle airflow, base running airflow. Basically the airflow that is required when your engine is idling, and it's going to be manipulating your idle air control valve to let more or less air into the engine to keep it from stalling and help it run properly.
RTT.
RTT is real-time tuning. So real-time tuning is an option that you can change in the operating system, so you can actually make adjustments on the fly without having to write the tune.
SD.
SD is speed density. So we talked about the MAF sensor. Speed density is when you would run without your MAF sensor. You would disable it, and you would be running in speed density.
SES.
SES is service engine soon.
STFT.
Short-term fuel trim.
STIT.
Short-term idle trim.
TAC.
TAC, that's the TAC. I put module after that one. So TAC module is your throttle actuator control module. Throttle actuator control module. So there's drive-by cable, which actually that's another one that I didn't put on there. DBC or DBW, drive-by cable, drive-by wire. So drive-by cable is what I have on both of these vehicles. It's where you have it's just a mechanical cable, a steel cable that's opening the throttle plate. DBW is drive-by wire, and it's an electronic throttle control that is driven by the TAC module. So your TAC module is basically controlling the opening and closing of the throttle blade.
TCC.
Torque converter clutch. So that's basically your torque converter lockup clutch.
TCM.
Transmission control module.
VATS.
VATS is your VATS. So the VATS is like one of the most common changes. So even if you're never going to make any changes to your tune and you're just going to run around on a factory tune with a swap, you still need to delete the VATS on the computer. So that's the vehicle anti-theft system, and that is communicating with using the VIN number to communicate with the body control module. So it's like an anti-theft system that when you separate the engine control module from the body control module, it knows when you try to start it that it doesn't have a matching VIN number, and it's like a theft thing, so it thinks it's stolen and it doesn't let it run. So there's an option in there to delete the VATs, and that's how you would run your standalone systems.
VE.
VE, your volumetric efficiency. In short, that is basically a percentage or a ratio of how efficiently your engine is using the air that's coming into the intake.
VID.
So a little more about the VE table. So your VE table is, so if I said we could go down a rabbit hole pretty quick. So your VE table is going to be basically your primary fuel table. You're making that adjustment, adding the numbers. When you increase the number, you're telling it that there's more air coming in, so it's going to add more fuel.
Back to VID.
VID is your vehicle identification.
VCM.
Vehicle control module.
VCT. Did I get you? Did I get you?
VCT. Oh, variable cam timing. Duh. Yeah,
Almost.
VCT, variable cam timing, yes.
VSS.
Vehicle speed sensor.
PPM.
VSS and PPM kind of go hand in hand. So you have your vehicle speed sensor, and PPM is pulses per mile. So your vehicle speed sensor is going to be reading pulses on a reluctor wheel, and you'll have a certain amount of pulses that you can calibrate in the tune to show how many pulses per mile, and that'll help you calibrate your speed sensors and all that junk.
WOT.
Wide open throttle.
TPS.
Throttle position sensor.
MS.
MS is milliseconds. I think we covered that one already.
Yes, we did. MV.
MV is millivolts. We covered that one.
You had it on your device.
I know.
And you had this PO1.
PO1. Okay, so this is where we could easily go rabbit hole and go a little nutso getting into like the computers and stuff. So PO1 is a computer in short. I'll try to make it short, even though my intro was really long. PO1 is an earlier model computer, also known as a 0411 PCM, which is the serial number or the service number. And it's an earlier model, 99 to 02, 03-ish, with a 24X reluctor wheel on the crank.
P59.
P59 is a later model, also 24X reluctor. So I have a P59 in this computer, in this truck, and I have a PO1 in this car.
E38.
E38 is 07 and up with the 58X reluctor wheel.
E40.
E40 is a 24X reluctor wheel.
E67.
E67 is, I think, like the LS9, LS3 computers.
KPA, you already went. That's done.
So KPA, we did cover KPA, kilopascals, but I also put bar on there, so I want to talk about bar a little bit. So your manifold pressure is measured in KPA, and you have a 1 bar, you could have a 2 bar, some are 2.5 bar, you have 3 or 4 bar. So basically your 1 bar system is just when the engine is running naturally aspirated and no boost. So your engine is in vacuum the whole time. 0 KPA would basically be close to atmospheric pressure. And when you start getting into 2 bar system, that's when you're running boost. So you're above atmospheric pressure and running boost up to about 15 pounds.
INHG.
So INHG would be inches in mercury, so it is a way to measure manifold vacuum.
HZ.
HZ is hertz, so that's how your MAF sensor would be measured. It measures your pounds per hour, calculates your pounds per hour of air coming into the intake based on the frequency that is generated when the air moves across the MAF.
OS.
OS is an operating system, so each computer has a different operating system. So when you're changing from a factory file to like a speed density 2 bar file, you're going to be changing the OS or the operating system of the computer.
E%.
E% is your ethanol percentage, so you might see that when you're reading through forums or seeing other posts. Somebody might say like an E30 or an E40 or E85 is very common, but usually when people are saying E40, E50, they actually know what their ethanol content percentage is instead of just saying, I run E85. They're actually telling you what the ethanol percentage was. But that could easily be confused with like an E40. The computer is an E40, but I was running E40% ethanol, so it could be confusing.
Z.
Z is for zebra.
That's all you got.
That's all we got. Alright, so that was kind of just a quick little rundown. I will put the link in the description for all this stuff. There was some stuff that I had on this paper that wasn't in the link, and there's some stuff that's in the link that's not on the paper. I just kind of wanted to talk about in the video what I felt was relevant or beneficial what you might use while you're tuning or learning, and stuff that I feel like kind of just jumped out that you would want to know or need to know while you're reading stuff or doing things or doing the damn thing. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a good one.